Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Success After Trauma, where we meet with and interview people that have had experiences in their life that they may have been challenging, struggles that may have, or traumas that they may have faced. And as we talk to them about what was like getting through that, what was the shift point, and then where they're at right now. What does success look like right now for them? Because if we're being honest with ourselves, all of us have experienced trauma at some level. And right now we're somewhere on the journey. You're somewhere on your journey, and each person in listening is. And you may be processing that trauma. You may have just got over that trauma. You may be beginning to build success, or you may have created monumental success so far. And no matter where you're at on that journey, someone is one chapter behind you and they need just what you have. So if you have the courage to share your story, reach out to me at greg@gregpihs.com. I want to share your story so we can empower other people. Today, our guest is Alex. And Alex, how do you say your last name, by the way?
Okagu.
Okagu. Did I say it right?
Perfect. Okagu. That's correct. Yep.
Alex is a friend of mine. I got to meet Alex through a mutual friend that we have. Josh Rosales is an incredible guy, leader in Middle Tennessee community, and so I got to meet because Alex participates and helps out. And I believe, are you even on the board with Josh's with Breakthrough Nashville? Breakthrough.
Yes.
Perfect. So that's where I met again Alex through a mutual friend and a nonprofit, a community leader, and I immediately there was just small exchanges with Alex, and I was like, "Whoa, we're on the same wavelength." I was like, "I got to connect with this guy." So we hopped on a Zoom, and I learned a lot more about Alex, and you guys are going to learn a little bit more today. Alex is the founder of something that is called the Immersion Experiment. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's a way of bringing, if I can, Alex, and forgive me if I'm misspeaking, we're gonna elaborate a little bit later. What I'm gonna say to the listener, it's a way of creating a visual experience through audio.
Yes.
Is that fair to say?
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
It's really cool, and I know it's just coming together. It's something that'll be consumer facing, maybe within I don't know. I'm thinking, are you looking at like next 6 months? Does that probably sound about right?
Probably next 6 months or so.
It's incredible. So we'll dive into that a little bit deeper. But Alex, tell us a little bit about yourself.
You got it. So my name's Alex. I'm I guess you could say I'm a technology professional in that I've dabbled in every form of technology since I was young. Always loved computers, always loved games, always loved the stories behind games, and found myself kind of venturing more and more into that arena as I grew older, became a teenager, ventured into that space as well, started dabbling around with audio a lot more, getting my hands on tools I could, starting with Windows Recorder, goofing off with my buddies on that, creating small stories. And over time, it just developed into a passion to do more with this medium and to create stories that were far more immersive in experience than what you usually hear when people put together audio stories, or if you're just trying to have a cinematic experience by listening to a Star Wars tape or something like that, an extra story that's created apart from the movies. I used to have some of those growing up as well. And I just wanted to start venturing into this space, entertainment, whether it was film, audio. Audio seems to be where I really started catching traction. When I was about 16 years old, I had an opportunity to audition for a video game, and a real-time strategy game. If you're familiar with those games like Command and Conquer, I don't know if you ever heard of those kind of games before.
I'm not Alex, but I'm sure there's listeners that are very familiar with it.
Command and Conquer, StarCraft, Warcraft, all those kinds of things where you point and click and move your people around the map. And I came across this posting online, and as a result of my experience with my buddies and all that, I kind of amassed a little sound database and a grasp of how a lot of this technology works. And so I got an audition request through a voiceover website from a company in Austria, and they wanted me to audition and read for one of the characters. And so I looked it over. They sent me the script with all the character sides, all that kind of stuff, the context of what was happening. And I said, you know what, I want to do something a little bit different here. I just want to test the waters. So I went ahead and got some of my friends together, and we produced a full scene. I was reading for a character. I got my other buddy to read all the sound effects in real time, like these people were in a battlefield situation. They were over comms. There were explosions going off. all that stuff, kind of as a hint at the kinds of things I wanted to get into. And I sent that audition, fired that off to them. They mailed me back, I believe it was that same evening, and said, "We want you to do the whole thing. So we want you to take the reins of all the voiceover for the game, cast it, do whatever you got to do. It's all yours." It's 16, 17 years old.
Can I interject? So
You bet.
so help me, or maybe, or do you even realize, when did you, it sounds like from an early age you were called to this in general, like it was just something that was a passion for you, you didn't have to figure it out, you were called, you were attracted to it.
Right.
How did you start? And we'll get in more detail. So for everyone listening right now, when we talk about the immersion experiment, and you heard a little bit of what Alex is saying, and this doesn't even do it justice, but what we're doing is we're telling stories, but you're living it. Like if you were to put the headphones on and close your eyes, you would be in the environment, because it becomes a 3D audio experience.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, my question is, like, do you recall, like, what went through your head that you're like, I got to put some more layers in this audio? Like, how did that come about?
I think it mainly came about through my love for the storytelling experience. I played a lot of games, and maybe we can talk about some of that, uh, bringing certain what I would consider traumatic events out of my own experience, and then turning it around into something that was very productive, unusually so. Whereas I think if I would have been given more of the opportunities that your average kid would get, especially in social settings, which I'll explain a little bit, I might not have been as inclined to pursue this as heavily as I did to make me proficient at it. And what
Mm,
I mean by that is, when I was growing up, I grew up in a Christian household. Good, everything was great overall. Childhood which was simple and chill. I had my close friends that I did things with. Went to a very small school, and small private school. But out of that, oftentimes I found myself more isolated, I guess, than your average person, because I wasn't necessarily allowed to do a lot of what the other kids do. Oftentimes, getting together may have been met with no's, or not right now, or whatever it is, because of the parameters that I grew up in. Both my parents' military background, so they were already fairly structured and strict
hmm
in some ways. And then as a result, if I wanted to go out with the buddies and hang out in specific places, or go on extended trips and all that, oftentimes I would be the person that would be have to leave back, or have to sit this one back, and then I would find myself in my room, kind of by myself, either looking at the walls, or over time developing things to do to develop myself. And so out of that came the computer, came the audio, came a lot of storytelling and story writing and all those things. Mainly, I think, because of the isolation that I experienced growing
Yeah,
up.
so it sounds like it became part of your escape in the room.
Yeah. Yes, it did.
That's
Definitely.
incredible. And then obviously we know, I say obviously, our imagination is very, very powerful. And I even say, I would suggest to people that imagination is more important than education. What? Okay, I'm gonna suggest it.
Yeah.
And what I share with people is that nothing was ever man created. Nothing that man ever created. It was never taught before it was imagined.
Hmm.
It was
That's
never
right.
taught before it was it had to be imagined first. Once it was imagined, it come into creation, then we could teach it to other people. This is where I say imagination is more important than education. And maybe instead of saying more important, I should say is the precursor
You're
to
correct.
education.
Yeah, it is
So
very important.
so what about so your parents, was it from, and do you mind, are you comfortable sharing,
Sure.
parents not wanting you to, or maybe being a little bit more conservative around, like, hey, don't go out there? Was this just a safety factor? They just wanted you to be safe?
Yes.
Okay.
So growing up, I came from a household that was, I would say, my mom fought really hard to get to where she did when she enlisted, to keep the family together. She came from a background of poverty, where their family, growing up, it was, um, I would say, scrounging to keep food on the table.
Mm,
Um, doing what they could to stay and keep a roof over their head. Issues with my grandfather growing up, where it wasn't the safest environment for all the family.
Mm.
And it ended up in a situation where she and the rest of her siblings, 9 siblings, and their grandmother all ended up on the street because the grandfather decided that he wasn't going to deal with them anymore. And so they all went and moved in with my aunt and my great grandmother, and they did whatever they could to woof it in that situation. And I think out of that, in her was born this thing: is I cannot have my future dictated by these constraints that were put on me by my father in this situation. I will not see my children grow up in an environment where they're stuck in this situation because of something that happened in my past. So she enlisted, and she said, and my uncle did the same thing. So there were a couple of them that had that mentality: we're getting out of here at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do whatever we have to do to get there. And so I think part of that has to do with why my mom was so particular about us participating in certain events and activities and situations, because she grew up in a situation that was, I would say, less than fortunate, and at the same time witnessed a lot of things that people growing up don't want to have to witness.
Yeah.
And so I think naturally, though I could look at it in some regard and say I wish there was a little bit more freedom, I could see where she was coming from. But as a result, constraints were put on my brothers and I when we were growing up that did not allow us to experiment and explore as much as others that were in our age range. Oftentimes as well, we were met with our friends, the usual reaction that, well, it doesn't look like you guys are going to be going, but you might as well ask, or things like that. It was expected that we were not going to necessarily be able to do the same things. So as a result, I think my brothers and myself ended up really focusing on the imagination. My brothers with music and myself with film and storytelling and games and stuff like that. And I really think that because of that, I was able to develop a proficiency with wordplay and understanding characterization and doing all these things because of that time having to be spent doing alternative activities to what my peers might have been doing out there. If that makes sense.
Well, and by today, and I don't know how much you can share. I'm not sure,
Sure.
but
Yeah,
I know
no.
that you have things in the workings with some very, 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 very large companies right now. And again, I don't know what can be publicly shared and where you're at with NDAs and things like that. But
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah.
with that being said, this what began as an escape is
Mhm.
now this big powerful entity that's in the midst of creating.
Yes.
Where did you have the realization? So you're clear on what you're under. I could tell by the way you spoke. There's only love for your parents.
Yes.
You're clear on why they did what they did. You're
Mhm.
clear on what that meant for you. When did you have that realization? Like at
As far as
16, did you?
them,
Oh, go ahead.
as far as not being able to um, participate in the same way with other kids, or what?
Yes, yes. But the realization that hey, mom, dad love me. This is their way of trying to protect me, and then realizing that this is my, like, now you're able to say that became my outlet, and that's how that became a thing. But at
Yes.
16, we may not have realized that. When did you start realizing, man, that's my outlet? But holy crap, I got something here.
I would say, boy, I really dove into that probably when I was 15 or so. I had an opportunity to participate. Very small school, remember. I'd be lucky if there was 60 or 70 in enrollment, but and that's from K through 12. It was a small school, but my principal was in the arts and very much wanted to drive a lot of us into, I guess, realizing the kind of talents that we have. I got a lot of
Mm.
compliments on those kinds of things, from personality to just the way I presented myself in adult situations, or enthusiasm for life and things. And so out of that came the opportunity to actually do a lot of stage performances and get the lead roles and really be able to dive into that and then experience that acceptance, I guess, from people of not only what I was throwing out there that someone else might have written, but even things that I was coming up with myself. And that's when it clicked for me that I believe that I have something here that I need to explore and I need to cultivate. And as a result of that, midpoint in my teenage years, it kind of became a singular focus. Whereas before I may have been inclined to want to do a lot more participating with my buddies and stuff, and a lot of things they were doing, and they were shaking their head on the side, when I was stuck doing this stuff. At the same time, they started seeing these things developing, and I would hear from them, dude, your creative capacity and what you're coming up with, and these are teenagers saying this stuff is like huge. You could be in the industry full bore, by the time it's all said and done, if you keep doing this stuff or making these kinds of things. I was always trying to make little films. I was always trying to get them all involved in stuff. And so I just became hyper focused just on the business side of it, or understanding the business side of it, and then understanding the artistic side of it as well. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, I just started writing, and I started compiling gigs worth of things that I just made over the years, not necessarily going into something where those items that I produced were becoming something bigger, like a full film or anything like that. But I was definitely amassing something, a database of some kind. And recently, it just seems like things have clicked in my mind as a result of talking to people here, discussing with people, whether at work or whether local, that said, you got something, you got to do something with this. This is this is unique. And if you have an opportunity to present something unique as a result of your experience, you can't pass this up, especially being where you are right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that kind of helped me really pivot to say, it's time. It's been in incubation for a long time, a lot longer than the 9-month period, but it's time to start working on giving birth to something out of all of these experiences that I've had. That includes the traumas over the years I've experienced, whether it's going off to college for the first time. I grew up in Maryland, very diverse place, very much supported. I just felt so deeply supported by almost everyone around me to pursue who I was wanting to become. Then I went off to school. And then when I got to college in a state that might be kind of be considered a Southern state, I got an eye-opening experience as far as the way some of my peers viewed me as a Black guy. Very different than anything I ever experienced when I was growing up. I had no awareness at all. And like I said, being in a smaller environment, and then I got down there and I see that there's this universal undercurrent that I was not even used to it. I didn't even have any awareness of it.
Yeah. Tell me, yeah, if you can, let's dive into that
a little bit. I would love to, yeah.
What was that like? Not even realize, I love how you worded it, not even realizing that this undertow existed. And then you show up and you're like, wait, what?
Exactly.
Can you share a little bit with that experience?
Sure. And obviously, who knows who may watch this? I'm not saying any of my former colleagues or college mates or anything like that, so I'll leave names out of it per se. But just arriving at school and presenting myself a certain way, and my peers, whether Black or white, oftentimes confused at the way that I presented myself because the expectation was different. You're supposed to be like this. You're supposed to like this kind of music. You're supposed to present yourself like this. Hey, you're just a Black guy. Don't think of yourself as more than what you are. Wow. And oftentimes I would get in these situations. I went to school with one of my best friends who I grew up in school with. He was a white guy. Both of us went to that school together. And I, just being how I am, we hung out all the time. At home, he's one guy that I always did stuff with, especially as I got in my late teenage years. We'd do all kinds of stuff. And I assumed the environment would cultivate that same experience that I came from. Well, we're all making new friends. We're all getting into new circles and cliques as college and whatnot. Some of the people within his clique immediately saw an issue with that. Who's this Black guy? Why is he around? Why is he hanging around? Then never mind to them that me and this kid literally grew up together. I mean, in every aspect, in the same climate, not really looking at things that way or whatnot. And as a result of that, he and I just started drifting, not because he started treating me any different, but because I had to process what was going on. I was finding myself, I guess, shell-shocked by what I was experiencing, and where you still have somebody reaching over the line to you saying, hey, man, I'm here, let's hang out and whatnot. I just felt like I couldn't. It's like getting caught up in a tide, rip tide or something, and you're reaching out for that person. You just find yourself drifting further and further out to sea. And those experiences that just started coming, not just with him, but in general, being in that environment, not necessarily feeling understood the way I felt like back home. Um, it started. Uh, it started a process in a journey that I had been on of really trying to get to the root and understand who I was in relation to the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
That once I got outside of that bubble that I was in, I didn't feel like fully understood who I was. And that was very difficult. A lot of people, I still got the same kinds of reactions and insights by plenty of people about what they thought my capabilities were. But those oftentimes that I tried to befriend, um, even though I had a pretty good friend circle, no one ever got, I would never let anyone get really close to me.
Mm-hmm.
There did come a time where I had friends that really wanted to get in, male and female, really wanted to get into who I was. And they said, man, you are impossible to really get beyond a certain point. And I think it's because that initial shock that I had, funny enough, coming from a family where I wasn't necessarily given the opportunity to have a huge social circle. Then when the opportunity is thrown in my lap, and there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of people compelled to learn more and understand who I am, I find myself with these walls up that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
Whether it's from things in childhood for protection or the immediate thing to protect myself once I got in that environment and saw what was coming at me. There was a point that I reached where I started feeling stuck in my ability to connect with others on a personal level.
How did and if you can share a little, how did that
Yeah.
so building these walls is a very it's protection mechanism. I can't imagine like being an adult and then you're walking in, you're like, wait, what, we're not the same? I'm different.
Yes. Yeah.
So you build these walls for protection, like, oh, I guess I'm different. These people don't like me. Okay.
Mhm.
What was the journey like, or where are you at? What was the journey like, or where are you at now in terms of breaking those walls back down? I mean, when I heard what you just shared, my first I caught myself. I was feeling bad mostly for the people that said the things to you, because I was like, oh my God, how could they be so? I was feeling worse for them than I was for
Yeah.
you, and I was
Yes.
thinking I should be feeling bad for Alex. Bump them.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, I can understand why you would feel bad for them. They're missing out on
Oh my gosh.
so much richness in life. And that's what I'm
Yes.
telling you. I grew up in, I can't even explain it. Where did you grow up, by the way?
Uh, all over, but New Jersey, Virginia.
Got it. So you know what I'm talking about with the diversity. If you're in the
Mm-hmm.
Northeast,
Mm-hmm.
it's just far more integrated and
Mm-hmm.
diverse.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really think about, and of course you got your outliers, don't get me wrong. But when
Right.
you're in a place like DC or something like that, the mix is so intense of people that you don't really have time to try to segment people into different categories. My goodness, there are Somali people, there are Indian people, there are people from Zimbabwe, there are people from Haiti, there are people from Germany, there are people every single place. And you can't just look at someone and then categorize them black, white, black, whatever it is. It's just a melting pot. And as a
That's
result of
right.
not having that time to really focus on that stuff, I was around a very mature culture. I'll put it that way. I felt like there was far more maturity in that culture than there was in the culture of the state that I went to school in, to where suddenly I found myself coming from this nebulous place where you could be anything or anyone, and it doesn't matter. The expectation is, yeah, if you believe it, you can be it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
To where you're supposed to be like this, where you're
Mm.
supposed to be around these people. Why are you talk like that? Why do you act like that? That's not right. That doesn't make any sense, because in those places, there are maybe 1 to 2 to 3 different expectations of a template you're supposed to follow. And anything else falls outside that is a little weird or doesn't make any
That's
sense.
right. That's right. Yeah,
That,
limited. Obviously, those humans had limited exposures, and then created complex equivalences, which is
yes.
to say this equals this, and
Bingo.
then when you didn't equal it, well, wait, what? Wait,
Yeah.
but that complex equivalence was may have been installed maybe by their parents, or just maybe from a lack of exposure. I say a lot that the more we travel, the less ignorant we become.
Yes, yes.
It's wild all the how we and I say we, I'm speaking of humans.
Humanity.
So
Mhm. Yeah, oh, yeah, no, I understand.
yeah, how we have this belief or this idea, and everyone in all their areas. If we go around the globe, we have this belief or this idea of how things should be.
That's right. Yeah,
We as whoever, wherever you're at in the globe, we each group do things based upon their environment.
yes,
I like to think that while I'm congruent that there is inherent wrongs, I believe that there is inherent rights and wrongs. There is. For
yes,
the main part, we assign what is right and what is wrong when it shouldn't even be evaluated at that level.
correct. Yep,
This you know, the way Bob does it isn't right or wrong. The way Sue does it isn't right or wrong. It's just how Bob does it or how Sue does it.
that's
So
right.
how did what was it like for you? When did you start having aha moments to be able to break down those walls, to realize like, hey, this is actually their problem. It's not even my problem. What did that look like? What did that journey look
This
like?
is this surreal thing. I'm sure you might have had experiences like this before too. As a result of those walls I put up and coming from an environment where I was already kind of a what's the word? A created introvert in some ways,
Hmm, hmm.
very much an extrovert by all appearances. Everybody and their brother in the hallways when I was walking through. I knew everyone and whoever it was, and my buddies would be like, "Goodness gracious, you just know everybody in the place." Oh, you know what I mean?
Right.
But the interior stuff that was going on was a very different world where it was like I don't feel like I have these uh, deep, enriching relationships. It feels like something is missing. And
Hmm.
where I started having these aha moments because of my self-image of myself that I had to kind of readjust. And I was thinking, okay, if this person seems to have a problem with me and who I am and how I present myself, and not putting myself in a category that must be everyone. Well, I've started finding out, even as simpler things as dating women. I started finding out after the fact from many of my peers who told me after the fact, if you would have just said something, or you would have just showed interest, I would love to have dated you in school. And my jaw about hit the floor because I was like, "Are you kidding me?
Right.
You
Right.
would, you would." And it was like that's when I was like, "What am I not seeing here? I really must be missing the script." Or guys who good buddies of mine, who we would meet people and I might admire someone and say, goodness, I think they'd be a cool person to hang out with. And I just never pursued it because of the same things. Like, dude, I would have loved to have hung out with you and maybe gone, done some sports thing or whatever it may be. And in my mind, there was never even, it wasn't even on the radar. And these people thought, on the other hand, that I just didn't have time or I was not interested or couldn't be bothered. And I was thinking, there's a huge disconnect in my social image and then my image of myself. Something's off. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I was like, maybe I came into this with the right mentality to begin with, to just be who I am and accept that aspect of it, instead of what I've done now is spent so much time second guessing myself that there's a whole different thing going on here apart from what I came in, this place I came to with the energy I came to this situation with. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Weirdest thing to experience that, to come and be ready to land like lightning in somewhere, and then to basically feel like you lose all your superpowers, and then you've got to learn how to use them again because you're faced with situations that you were not prepared for,
Right.
especially in a social setting. And so I started having those moments when people started pulling me aside and saying, whether it was females that I wanted to date or I would have been interested in, expressing that were I not daft, or were did I not seem disengaged, they would have loved to actually got to know me on a deeper level. And them coming out with that, me being like, how?
Right.
What? You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
Right.
when I started realizing, okay, I do have this superpower, so to speak, but somehow somebody came along and brought a box, and when I wasn't looking, threw them in that box, and then took the key with them, and I've got
Right.
to figure out how to get back into it. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. That's right. That's right.
So that aha moment has now become something where it's like, how do I unravel this thing? Use my abilities, understand who I actually am in relation to other people, and my love for people, how that emanates, and how I can use that to my advantage still, instead of going on the defense when I get in situations, because I may be worried that these people might not accept me for who I actually am.
You
That's
know,
been a
I love everything you said, and I've had many. We've actually talked about in other opportunities how we as humans, and I have plenty of stories. It's what we do as human. We project.
yes,
Nothing can exist outside that doesn't already exist inside. So
yep,
the people that are manifesting all these great things, okay, inside, outside, and then the same thing. We project what there are inherent truths. Okay, so if I walked into the same room that Alex was standing in, Alex could say, you factually, you just walked in the room. There's no way to dress that up any differently. I mean, he could say you paced into the room or you strolled into the room, but the fact of the matter is I'm physically in the room. We can't alter that, right?
yeah,
But for everything that we don't currently know to be a factual truth, we're assigning the value to it.
yes.
And it's wild how, like, if we actually evaluate, I'm still on a process of integrating, I'm still on a journey of realizing how many times we assign a negative value to something. Why?
Most of the time, man.
Man,
Mind
why do we
blowing.
do
Yeah.
it, man? We do it too. I do it. We
Did
all
that the
do
other
it.
day when I caught that portion of you saying that in the podcast about us projecting certain things. I'm like, well, no wonder no one's approaching, or no one feels safe to approach, if I'm, because of these insecurities, projecting certain things that are automatically, the read from other people is going to be, oh, that person's not, they're not interested, or they don't want to be bothered, or whatever it is, because you're projecting whatever that thing is that you're being tormented by. It's my, when you said that the other day when I listened on the podcast or whatever it was, I was like, oh crap. That's the answer to this conundrum that we all seem to deal with. Instead of just living in the moment with people and letting them be who they are to us, especially the first impressions when we
That's
first
right.
meet people,
That's right.
we're projecting something oftentimes that doesn't even allow us to get to that point, because those connections are not even being able to get past the wall that's up to be made to begin with. And that's why I think socially, so many people, especially even in our generation, have problems getting beyond a certain point with many people. I don't want to be
Absolutely.
that guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I love it. You know, you made a decision somewhere again, the realization that everyone, these are my words now.
Yeah.
Everyone's actually walking around dealing with some baggage.
Yes.
And some people are walking around dealing with that baggage and their heads down. They may be sad, they may be depressed, they may not believe in themselves. And some people are walking around, and instead of the baggage being strapped to their back, they're swinging around and hitting people with it.
Yes, indeed.
It's
You're
it's
right.
still it's still their baggage. It's
Yeah.
not okay for them to walk around and hit people, but also just realizing that that person's hurt too.
Yes.
They're hurt just the same as the guy that's depressed over there. I didn't say it's okay for them to swing their bag around, and in fact, it's not at all.
Oh, yeah.
If someone's swinging their bag around on you, that's a boundary that needs to be put in place. That's
Yes.
their trauma, and they don't need to make it into your trauma. But then we I think there's a stat that says 80 or 90,000 thoughts a day, and then like 85% of them are negative,
Yes.
and then we adopt them.
Yep.
Like, why do I always have these negative thoughts? Well, because you keep them, because we manage them. Because even when we wonder why we're having a negative thought, we're still manifesting the reality of, like, dismiss it.
That's right.
Dismiss it and allow yourself to have a positive thought. You're simply allowed to believe positive. We have an internal reality and an external reality. When we daydream, those 90,000 thoughts a day, that's an internal reality.
Yes, it is.
And organically left alone, just the way the world works, it can be 85% negative.
Yep. How many times have we created a whole nother scenario? Especially when time goes by and we don't get answers from people or whatever it may be. We've created an entire scenario, and then that person gets back to us and says, oh, sorry, I was down yesterday, I had the flu.
That's
And
right.
but in between, the person doesn't like me, they don't want to do this anymore, they don't want to work on it, blah blah blah, whatever it is. And you work yourself up, and then by the time you hear from them, it's like I just created this entire reality for myself and wasted my day or week worrying about what that person's perspective was of me instead of accepting things at face value, that I wasted my time and was told after the fact that it was just something as simple as being down for a sickness, or I didn't have my car, or whatever it is. You know what I mean?
I love it. I love you brought that up. I'm gonna
Yes.
share a story. One time at this
Yeah.
connection or this contact, and it was what had an opportunity to become a business transaction. And I reached out to this person and I said, "Hey, let's connect." They said, "Yeah, let's connect." They said, "But I'm going out of town. Be out of town for like a week." Okay, well, I'll connect when I'll reach out in a week or so. Maybe like a week and a half went by, and I reached out. Hey, let's connect, grab lunch. No response. And then like another week went by and I was like thinking, I was like, okay. So I start typing out the text. Here we go. So I start typing out the text. Don't mean to bother you. Sorry. All these like weird things that I'm saying. And before I sent the text, and I'm so glad I did, before I sent the text, it clicked and I was like, why am I projecting all this negative shit? And,
Yes.
and I did. So I delete the text and I was like, well, why would, that's the negative. I assigned all the negative reasons why. What could be a positive reason? What could be another reason why someone didn't answer from like, and then I thought to myself, I was like, well, there's probably a few texts I haven't responded to because in the heat of the day, you look down, you see the text, and then someone else, something's going on. You
That's right.
mentally, you want to respond, but then five other things happen.
That's right.
Okay. So, so I send this text to this person and I said, hey, I said, I know how it is. I said, you read the text, you mean to respond, and then 20 other things take place.
Oh
I
man.
send the text, immediate response. That's exactly what happened. I'm so sorry. Let's grab lunch tomorrow.
Done deal. You see
Done
what I mean?
deal.
And your response was measured, it was reasonable, it was confident. You know what I mean? Instead of
Yeah.
I don't want to bother you, but you know what I mean? None of that
Yeah.
nonsense. It was, hey, I know things are busy. Just wanted to circle back. Why don't we do it? Oh yeah, yeah, no problem. Whatever.
Yeah.
Instead
Because
of projecting that fear or whatever it is, you decided to do the counter to that and then got the response you would have gotten far better than if you sent something, that might have been like, okay, this guy's a little bit uh, too desperate to connect or whatever it may be that could be the wrong impression. You know what I mean?
that's right.
It's
That's
interesting
right.
to stop yourself and then kind of reverse course and do something completely different. Not everybody can do that. Many people sink the relationships around them by acting first before they get a proper response or before they even think through what they're doing. I'm sure you've seen plenty of that as well.
And it's just such a natural response to do all these things we're talking about. And Alex, I know you've had a lot of, I don't know if you've done formal studies around um spirituality, mindset, mindfulness. I don't know if you've done formal studies or not, but you have a much higher level of ascension than the average person walking around. But I want to share with everyone else, depending wherever you're at on your journey, this is natural things that we do. This is and most of the things that we're talking about, they're installed from about the age of 0 to 7, generally speaking. These things get installed. Our parents passed them down. They were doing the absolute best they could with the resource they had at that time. And then we tend to live our life and never evaluate these subconscious beliefs or subconscious agreements that we have.
That's right.
You've definitely taken time to evaluate a lot of the subconscious, a lot of things that were installed and implanted, and it shows. Um, what when did you start having in? When did you start having the aha moment around? Take me to the next chapter. So we go to college and we're like, oh wow, and we're building walls, right?
Mhm.
When did we have the after you realize like, hey, that's their problem actually. They have an issue. I don't actually have an issue. I'm good the way I am.
Yeah.
And start realizing and really stepping into your power and your talent and your passion. When did that take place and what did that start to look like once you did that?
I will say, I was always still driven towards my goal. I would write, sometimes, I guess to my own detriment. I could get people really hyped and excited about something, but didn't have the resources oftentimes to execute it. So I'd be working on stories and whatnot all the time. But I started realizing once I got away from the college environment, as I connected and reached out to people, they were more inspired by what I was doing, and
Mm.
oftentimes would be boots to the ground if they could help out however they could. even without resources being there. And I started thinking to myself, okay, I don't even have the resources that I want. I can only imagine if I had the resources. I've got a way of getting people excited about these things and helping them realize their worth and their potential. And it was once I started connecting with that aspect of it, I started realizing that every single one of those people looked different.
Mm.
I didn't care if they were black, white, Asian, whoever it was. I was fielding it from everyone. Everyone was being inspired and elevated as far as their capabilities and their ideas and their talents. And I started taking that, and I would hold story groups, or I would, even like I'm doing now, hold writer circle, where speaking inspiration into people. And I noticed the same thing. There's a diversity there that's universal. It's not like I'm attracting one group of people. It seems to be everybody from every background that gets wind of it. And that's where it tells me, okay, what I have in my connection with people is a universal one that I've had. I got steered into thinking that I was only supposed to or allowed to connect with certain people, or would only ever be able to get to a certain point. But this is not what this looks like with what I'm actually experiencing. And when I
I
started
love this.
interviewing in places where there often wasn't diversity, especially with IT and things like that, I got the same response from the brass, where it would be, we really want you to work with us. What can we do? You know, whatever it may be. It was always an incredibly positive, enthusiastic response. Whereas a lot of my peers or other people told me, well, you can interview there, but those people they're racist, or you're not going to be able to get. I didn't have that same issue. And then when I didn't see that I was having that issue, I was thinking, okay, that's that person's issue that they're having. Um, I've noticed differently whenever I go into any of these environments where there's supposed racist or anything else. I'm getting job offers. I'm getting acceptance, or people, not because obviously because my not because of my skin color, but because I'm finding a universal ground with all of these people, no matter what walk of life they're in. And I think that's where a lot of my story, and even doing something like the podcast I'm going to be launching, that's where the inspiration started coming from. Because I was saying to myself, boy, podcasts need an audience. I seem to have a universal take on getting these people, breaking things down to layman terms, but at the same time saying, hey, if you wanted to do this, you could be doing the same thing. You all have a story to tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Where at any point did race or anything else even come into the factor into the equation? And I started being able to slowly dismantle whatever it was that I, in the college years, had been built up. I started being able to dismantle that and saying, this isn't even part of my story. I don't
Dude,
know
that's
how I
incredible.
detoured there, but I need to detour back and use this power that I have for the greater good of humanity, like I was intending to do before I went into this place. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So the
yeah.
tricky thing is, you're immature at a certain point. The world is your oyster. Everything's fantastic. You're a teenager entering this place, and you expect to just keep ascending, ascending, ascending. And then you reach that point where it's like, oh, crap. Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness. What is this? I don't know what it is. And you can only imagine the mental gymnastics that was going on during that time while still trying to maintain that enthusiasm. And then over time, as you get older, you start to think, okay, this could either dictate who I am from this time forward, or I can analyze and assess what I was before all of that and see where things went off the rails. And then I looked at college and I was like, I see what happened.
Mm-hmm.
This chapter, I don't want to necessarily pretend it didn't happen, but I need to assess it and put it in its place and realize, okay, this stays over here for analysis, but it doesn't stay put in the chain of things that keeps me moving forward.
That's incredible. I want to highlight a couple things that I noticed for everyone listening. I'm a trainer in the modality of NLP or neuro linguistic programming, something I'm passionate about. And a couple things that I wanted to highlight that I realized is one, your ability to compartmentalize that. That
Mhm.
did not become part of your identity.
No way.
That
Yeah.
became an isolated event in your timeline. And furthermore, what was incredible, and we already talked about it, when you're going, people are telling you, hey, don't go in there. They're not going to give you a job. They're racist. They're not going to like you. Any of the things that were said. But you're going to all of these places still to this day
Yes.
in life. You're going to all these places and being met with open arms.
Yes.
You projected that.
Correct.
That became your reality because you didn't see people don't like me in there. You seen, I love people. People love me. What are you talking about?
Yes.
It's incredible. It's a testament to your character even after. Where did you go after college? What state? Or did you hang out in Maryland, or what
Well, I
state
went
next?
to after college. I went to college in Virginia.
Oh,
Briefly
Virginia. Oh, I'm
went back
sorry.
to Maryland. What's that?
I'm so sorry. I
Oh,
thought
you're
college. So
fine.
college was in
I grew up
Virginia.
in Maryland, but I went down to Virginia for a stint, then went back to Maryland, and then the journey obviously took us back through Virginia, most recently then North Carolina, and then now Nashville.
Where
So,
did you go to college? So I actually graduated high school in Portsmouth, Virginia. Are you familiar with Portsmouth?
ah,
Okay.
I'm familiar with Portsmouth. I went to Liberty
Okay.
University.
Okay.
Yep,
I'm
in
not too
Lynchburg.
familiar with Liberty.
Yeah, I went there for about 3.5 years or so. And then after that, I went directly back home for a little bit, just to get my bearings and whatnot, and then kind of went on this journey back through Virginia with friends and stuff like that. And then my, I guess you would say, career or what I'm doing currently started really taking traction when I went into North Carolina
Okay.
and started deciding, okay, I could be told that I need to apply for these kinds of jobs or whatever because that's the expectation, for my age as well as in some cases my race, or I could, which I say ethnicity, not necessarily race. I always tell that's another part of my identity, helping people understand that we're all in the same thing.
Mm.
It's an ethnicity, not different species of
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
whatever. You know what I
I
mean?
love that. I love
Yeah,
that.
and that's what puts us all on the level playing field. And I went into a place that I apparently didn't belong going in, which a previous boss actually got angry when he saw how high I was reaching, to a place where my salary ended up doubling and all of that. And that person was not happy with me not paying my dues, so to speak. You're
Mm-hmm.
not, you're not, and you don't have enough seniority. Who do you think you are coming in this environment and throwing your application in this place like you deserve to ascend? Anybody should be able to ascend at any time if they feel ready to do so.
That's right.
Whatever that person was feeling at the time, they didn't want me to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And in spite of their efforts, I still ended up doing so. And it was to the surprise of many as far as the track that you're supposed to take. But it's because my mentality was, whether I'm interviewing for an IT job or I'm interviewing to be an executive at a film company, I'm going to present the best part of who I am and believe there's no reason I shouldn't get it if I'm prepared and ready, if this is the next stage in my journey.
That's right.
That goes for political office or anything else. If you're
I
ready,
love it.
you're ready. It doesn't matter how you come in contact with those people or what kind of preparation you think you have. I was as ready when I was 16 as far as my social capability as I am now with people and enthusiasm. I approached the mayor of my town when I was a kid, and they were quite impressed with our, I would say, our tenacity to come in, me and these 13, 14-year-olds as a group dressed up in suits, basically demanding that the city look for resources to help us be able to make our films or whatever it may be. They said we don't have a fund or anything like that, but he even looked over at the mayor looked over at whoever it was, his admin person at the time. He said, these kids are something else. This
That's
is
incredible.
a whole nother level of go get it. He said, guys, don't lose this. We don't have any funds that we can do. We're too small. We're not, anything like that. But he said, don't stop. Whatever you're doing right here, you keep doing that and see what happens. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. That's
And
right.
so that's what my thought was, even when I was younger. Take that to everything you do, and everyone else will understand what you're doing, and they'll be able to tell who you are with you discussing that aspect with them, instead of saying, well, here are all my credentials. Here's all that stuff and whatnot. Here's what I'm trying to project so I seem bigger than I am, instead of being who I am,
That's
and
right.
then letting those things speak for themselves later on in the conversation.
And there's people that want to be for everyone listening too. There's people in the world that have a mission, and there's people in the world and their mission is to help other people with their mission.
Yes.
And when you just come organic, when you get vulnerable and you come out and you say, here's where I'm at and here's what I need help with, it's one of the stratospheric laws of success is the law of receptivity and the willingness to be able to receive help from others. Your people are going to show up and they're going to show up hard, and you're going to be surprised.
That's right.
There's people that want to support you. Like that's what gets them excited, is supporting your mission.
Yes. And you nailed that as well. I've been hearing a lot more recently And not just because it's a biblical term, but the you have not because you ask not. Half the time it's the people, myself included in the past, you stop yourself from going excelling because you're afraid to even ask, to
That's right.
even try to ask. You know what I
That's
mean?
right.
When instead, a lot of those people, you approach, they might say, dude, you could have approached me a year ago if you wanted. I didn't know you wanted to do that.
Mm,
Well, you can't know if you don't actually tell anyone. You know what I
that's
mean?
right. That's right.
So that's what I'm starting to realize now. I'm like, wow, open your mouth. Stop bridling your tongue when you want to do something and sabotaging your own efforts out of these perceived situations and insecurities, and watch how things start happening before that, after that. To give
That's
you an
right.
example of how that happened with me, which I'm still on this track, by the way, because I'm in technology as well. I built when I was in North Carolina, as part of my tenacity with folks, I ended up building a next generation kiosk where you go into the mall and you go on the Wayfinder and you can press a button and it will lead you directly to that store. Advertise, you can play games on it. There are incentives and promotions. And I even you're familiar with the company Turtle Beach?
I'm not.
Turtle Beach makes some of the best headphones in the world. They use even military applications. I got them to donate something that's called hypersound that they created.
Hmm.
If you've ever heard of what hypersound is, it's a next generation sound technology where you set up the speaker, whether it's in a kiosk or whether it's in a personal setting, and you aim it at a person, and that person's the only person that can hear what's coming through that speaker.
Oh, wow.
Everyone else around them, if it's not pointing at them,
Yeah.
they can hear the music. They step out of that field, it's silent. As soon as you step back in the field, you hear everything that's going on there. I
Wow.
had that built into the kiosk so that people could actually stand in front of it and not disturb anything around them, but hear as clear as day everything being dictated to them from the kiosk. And I had this built, and I got that 95% for free built. I would say a $22,000 kiosk. I approached all these companies. I said, I have an idea. I think it's incredible. I think it could be next generation and really push the envelope in our digital signage world that we're in. And I sat down and explained it, just presented myself as I am. And they said, all right, you know what? This does sound really cool. We're going to offer our component for free. So we'll give you the casing, and we'll give you the speakers, and we'll give you the 4K screen and all this other stuff, until I had an entire kiosk, including the software, donated as a project piece for me to present to malls in a system. And of course, I did present that to one of the biggest mall companies in America. And they really loved it. We got very close to implementation nationwide, but because we were a startup and they're a public company, we couldn't proceed because we were too new. They were getting ready to give us their portfolio of properties to distribute 6 to 8 of these devices into each one of those properties, of about 90 something properties. And that's one of those things, once again, where I've realized, oh my goodness, if you just open your mouth and you're confident and you let people understand who you are and what you're trying to give, the doors will be open for you. People are not waiting to just, oh, nope, sorry, that's silly. Boy, when you're enthusiastic and you show people and you help them paint a picture and help them understand what you're doing, you'd be amazed how quick people want to get on board with what you're doing.
That's right.
We sabotage our own efforts out of this path. And if something's in our path that doesn't belong, that's caused us to lose some of that momentum and confidence. And then we end up stopping ourselves from opening these doors on this train that keeps going by with all kinds of really cool stuff all inside of it. But we're afraid to open the door because of past insecurities. And then we've got to wait for the next door to come by, and the next one, and the next one. And there are some people, unfortunately, that spend their entire lives watching them all go by until that last caboose goes by and there's nothing left. And all they're looking at is a life of regret. And I might be relatively young, you as well now. I don't want to be one of those guys. I don't want to see the red caboose. You know what I mean?
That's right.
I want to have opened those doors at some point and experience the bounty of believing in the possibilities of what I can do.
So if people out there listening, if they want to learn a little bit more, and I'm sure they will, this is because it's a very unique subject, or I don't subject's not the right word, but the content that you're bringing, that you're just at the verge of bringing to the market, it's really cutting edge. It's really ahead of its time. People that want to learn a little bit more about the immersion experiment, where can we send them?
I would say, because I don't have the all the site and all that stuff up yet,
Mm-hmm.
it'll be immersionexp.com,
Okay.
or they can look up Immersion Experiment on Facebook when that goes up and is live. And of course, it'll be on all the regular streaming channels, Spotify, all that kind of stuff.
So that
I'll put an APB out.
well, and then the podcast will be named the Immersion Experiment. Is that correct?
Got it. The
Okay, cool.
Immersion Experiment. Yep.
And for everyone listening, that'll be the name of the podcast, but the Immersion Experiment is an experience.
Yes.
And we didn't go
Right.
totally in depth with it. We'll probably have Alex on another episode where we can dive a little bit deeper into what is that
Right.
experience.
Yes.
But for those of you that are intrigued, can they connect with you on your so do you have social media platforms that they can
I
connect
do.
on right
They
now?
look me up on Facebook, Alex Okagu. Or I would say I don't even want to give them the handle for sure on my Instagram because I'm still working on that as well.
Perfect.
They can feel free to contact me there, or they can email me, alex@immersionexp.com.
Perfect.
I'm always looking for collaborators and supporters as we get ready to launch this thing, and I'm all ears for anyone who has any questions or is interested in being a part of that.
Yeah, and it's definitely it's going to be something that's going to be huge. I know that. I
Thank you.
I want to be involved in any way I can along the way.
Thank you.
So, Alex, let me ask you this: we're gonna wrap up, and we're probably gonna have you back on another episode because I want to take a deeper dive into the immersion experiment. I want to give the people a little bit more of a sample of what it's about.
Sure.
But for today, what parting words? What would you give people? What would you give a let's say a young entrepreneur? And we know we know the struggle of being an entrepreneur. It's like a daily like throughout the day we're like on top of the world like 8 times and like in the pits like the trenches like 20 times and it's like
Yes, indeed. Oh,
that's
yeah.
just in one day.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
What's your what's for a young entrepreneur that's listening right now, when they have those struggles, when they get in the trenches, what can you give them for parting words on around mindset and belief in their mission?
I would say that at all costs, and of course everybody says this from all the gurus and everything, never ever give up the vision or surrender it to defeat. No matter how many doors you think are closed, once the doors actually open, the opening of those doors will be easier than all the pains that preceded it. And then you'll find yourself scaling from there. Les Brown, who's one of my favorite speakers to listen to, actually said one time, the hardest thing that I ever had to do was make $1 million. And the easiest thing I ever did was make $1 million.
That's
Once
awesome.
he got to that point, he could not believe how easy it actually was when whatever he needed to click, clicked. After all the times of struggle, after having to sleep in the office, after losing homes, after all this stuff, when it did click, it clicked and it clicked big. And it clicked in such a way where he was thinking, if only I had had this understanding, oh my goodness, I cannot believe this. And so on, the millions just started rolling in. You know what I mean? So you will have your click moment. We all do. And every man has his time in life. Don't think because yours has not come yet that it's not coming. There is a time appointed to everyone to experience that success and experience that breakthrough. You just have to not give up or fall short of the finish line before you get there because of feelings of defeat or believing that you don't have the capabilities because things haven't happened yet. I would say never give up, always keep hitting it.
I love that. I appreciate that, Alex. I appreciate getting to have you on, and we'll have you on here in the future. If anybody
Yes.
wants to connect with Alex, hear a little bit more about his story, if something that just connects you to the story, and you want to take a little bit of a deeper dive, reach out to Alex. We have his name right on the bottom of the screen, Alex Okegu. Check him out on social media. Check him out on email. Alex, give us that email one more time.
Yep, Alex at immersionexp.com.
Alex at immersionexp.com.
Yep.
Connect with Alex and learn more. Follow us if you're just listening to the audio. Check us out on YouTube at Success After Trauma. Like and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when new episodes come up. We're going to have Alex on in the future where you can hear a little bit more in depth about the immersion experience. But keep that on your radar because it's something that you're going to see. I think it's within I don't know, I'm speaking for Alex right now, but even within the next 90 days, you're going to start seeing more about this. In the next 180 days, it's going to be all over the place. So keep that on your radar. Make sure you talk to your friends about the Success After Trauma podcast. Let them know about it so they can download it from their favorite podcast streaming platform so that we can get the message out and we can reach more lives and we can empower more people. Be great. It's already in you.